WWE has decided on July 19th that SmackDown is going to be going live, and they are actually going to be bringing back the brand split. That's right, the first time in forever they're doing a brand split. It's been a fantasy thing that a lot of people have been talking about. Should they have a brand split now? Should they not? Ratings are down. What do they do? Well, SmackDown Live is a great option, and a draft and a split is something that's very, very good too. But we do need to look at it from both sides. We need to look at the good, we need to look at the bad, and we need to look at the ugly that's going to come out of this. So let's take a quick second and take a look at some of the things that may be positive, negative, or ugly for the brand split. First off, who's benefiting from this? A lot of this is dependent on the USA Network. USA Network, the ratings are low. How can we get those ratings better? Let's do SmackDown Live. That's the first key right there. Live television is so much better for the reason that it's live. You can't read the spoilers. I know that if I read SmackDown spoilers, I'm not really going to watch it. I already know what's going to happen. So with it being live, I can actually tune in and watch it and get my fill of what's actually going to be happening live. And you can always change on the fly. Things happen. People perform better in a live atmosphere. So SmackDown Live, awesome idea. No matter if they're competing, whether they're doing a brand split, whatever, that is very, very cool. Now, another thing that they said with the SmackDown Live is Shane and Stephanie came on a video and they were arguing back and forth. They're like, we need somebody who's going to run the brand properly. And then they're like, Stephanie's like, well, I already ran SmackDown, so I could do it. And then Shane's like, well, maybe I should. And then they both agreed that a McMahon needs to run it. So it looks like it's going to be happening here is that there's going to be Shane on one, Stephanie on the other, and then you have your brand split. That's fine with me. I like this idea, and it keeps things fresh. And you could also lead up to a brand war, stuff like that later if you want. But we're leading up to this right now, this brand split. And more back on USA is that USA probably likes this because they can dictate which superstars they want on which show, right? If USA is like, well, we notice a peak when Dean Ambrose is on. And Dean Ambrose is a guy who has not got to that main event level, but if you put him on SmackDown as a main guy, he would be an attraction. I like Dean Ambrose, and I think he's ready for he's been in main events, but he's not a main eventer. That's the key right there. You could put him over there, and he would be a draw. I think Dean Ambrose is good enough to be a draw. Put him on SmackDown, he could be a lead on SmackDown. So that's the thing. You could take guys like that. The one question I do have here is that do you keep it 3 hours on Raw and 2 hours on SmackDown, or do you have them both be 2 hours? Or do you have them both be 3 hours? I think you take them both down to 2 hours and you'll be much, much better because I think 3 hours wrestling that's not a special or a pay-per-view is hurting the WWE. So let's talk about this right now. Let's talk about some of the brand split implications here. With the brand split, we have questions on what is going to happen. First off, we need to know what is going to happen with the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. They unified the titles a while back. I think it was years ago, last year or 2 years ago. They unified the titles, and now they have one WWE World Heavyweight Championship. So the question needs to be answered. Do we keep one World Heavyweight Championship, or do we do two? My mind, I think you keep one. I like the option of having the guy. You are the guy in the company, and you are on both brands. I think that is great. I think that's the way to go. You have one world champion, so it makes people strive. You know what? If I won the world title, I could go on Raw and SmackDown. Makes things way, 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 way better. Now, speaking of championships, do you bring in a new championship, or what do you do with the Midcard titles? Right now, we have the Intercontinental and the U.S. title. The U.S. title's been more of that the international title, right, where you'd have like Kalisto, Rusev, those guys going for it, Alberto Del Rio. So do you keep that title, have the Intercontinental title on Raw, U.S. title on SmackDown, or do we bring in something new like a Cruiserweight Championship? I think a Cruiserweight Championship title is something that could work since they're doing the Cruiserweight Classic. I think it's a time where there's a lot of workhorse wrestlers, there's a lot of up-and-coming indie guys, there's a lot of NXT guys that they have. They could put the workhorse Cruiserweight title on a brand like a SmackDown or a Raw, and people would be interested. They're doing the Cruiserweight Classic. I think it's a perfect time to do that. But then again, that just makes me wonder, what do you do with the U.S. title and the Intercontinental title? Do you phase one out and bring back the Cruiserweight title, or what? So there's kind of a little double-edged sword on that, if you will. One thing that's going to be good for this is that you're going to see the mid card guys get a focus on the show. Where a lot of guys get left behind, you will actually see those guys actually getting a focus on the brand. It's a good idea, but it makes me wonder what's going to happen with the main event seed. I remember SmackDown for a while when they did the brand split. Some of their main events were featuring the same guys over and over and over. I remember it was like Edge, Undertaker, and Batista had main events for a year on SmackDown, I believe. It was like the whole year was either Edge, Batista, or I don't even remember what the other one I said. But anyway, Undertaker. Yeah, it was them three the whole time, the whole year. And that's all it was for the main events. It was either like a one-on-one with them or a three-way or whatever. But there was no variety in their main events. And I have a feeling that that could happen with this brand split. I think that's going to happen right now in WWE is that I think there's going to be a high turnover in wrestlers. And let me just speak on this. I think the brand split's going to help the high turnover in wrestlers, but I see something that's going to be happening here, right? With their NXT, right, and their Performance Center, what they have is they have the ability to bring in guys from all over the world, independent athletes, actors, whatever you want to do, whoever you want to train. You have the ability to bring them in, train them, get them ready for WWE, put them on NXT, get them to get used to the live card, and then bring them up to the main roster. What that's doing is that we're not going to see guys like The Undertaker anymore. We're not going to see guys like Triple H anymore. And what I mean like that is not that there's not going to be guys that are going to be on their level, but there's not going to be guys that are going to have that longevity that they have. I think the longest career that we'll probably see is like a Daniel Bryan type career in the WWE right now. I think you're going to see guys come in, they're going to have like 3 or 4 years, and then they're going to retire and go on to do something else. It's just for the fact that they have so many people going at the Performance Center. They have like 15 wrestlers every other week at the Performance Center trying out for a job in the WWE. Yes, with the brand split, that's going to open up. You're going to have guys on SmackDown, you're going to have guys on Raw, but it's just a time we're at in pro wrestling and WWE where these guys are going to be phased out faster and they're not going to have longer careers. There's a higher pace action too, right? We have those crash and burn type matches where guys do big moves and try and get over, and then they get hurt more, and then they're out, and then you just don't have the longevity of wrestlers. So that's just a thought in general. So with this brand split, I think viable things that we need to do here to make sure that the brand split's successful. I like the idea of Shane on Raw, Stephanie on SmackDown. I'd honestly put Shane on SmackDown just because he's a bigger draw. You want people to watch SmackDown. So put Shane on SmackDown, put Steph on Raw. People are saying, well, that's going to take focus away from Raw. The ratings are going to go to SmackDown and they're going to go away from Raw. It doesn't matter. It's USA Network. They're winning either way. So it doesn't matter. If the ratings go away from Raw and they go to SmackDown, they go from SmackDown, they go to Raw. It doesn't matter. It's USA Network. They're benefiting both ways. You don't have two different television networks competing, so it's not going to hurt them, right? You have them compete, and it's perfect. They're both on USA. They compete. Watch SmackDown. It's a better show. All right, you get high ratings on SmackDown. Well, you know what? It's USA Network, so they're happy either way. Then you have a SmackDown GM, like I said, Stephanie or Shane, whichever one you want, and then that's fine. Now, the good thing is that you have focus on mid-card talent. You could bring in guys like Tyler Breeze, who's just been sitting around for a while. He can do something. Ryback might be able to come back and do something. Get more focus on those guys that are disgruntled. I think they're looking at the guys that are disgruntled, like a Cody Rhodes, or they're looking at like Ryback, who are Damian Sandow also, who are just kind of like fed up with WWE right now. They're like, I could be a major player if you just let me, and they're not being let be major players. Now with the brand split, that lets everybody be major players, so the opportunities are there if they do it correctly. Now talking about championships, this is where it gets a little iffy. What do? I say you keep one world title, you have one mid-card title on each show, whether you want the US, Intercontinental, Cruiserweight, whatever you want. I think a women's one also needs to be like the world title. Women fight on both shows. Just my plan, just the way I see it. I don't think you need to segregate the women and have cruiserweights on one. I think you have women on both shows for that one women's title, and then you have that. The thing that this is going to do is going to allow those NXT guys to get called up, like a Finn Balor can get called up. I honestly think what we're going to see is like AJ Styles going to SmackDown or something. I just predict that's going to happen. and the Bullet Club will be on SmackDown. I don't know. I just think SmackDown's going to be the wrestling show. Raw's going to be the story show. I don't know if that's true or not. That's just my thoughts. That's what it was before. So, just don't screw it up. That's what I'm saying. If you screw it up, you can always go back, right? It's WWE. They can change it in an instant. They could just be like, yeah, I don't know. Vince could come back and be like, this isn't working. We're going back to one show. But I think now with the WWE Network, and they need to provide their own content. There's a lot of content. I think it's a perfect time for it. They have an influx of talent with the Performance Center. It only makes sense. Just hope they do it right. Here's what I say. One World Championship. Stephanie on one show, Shane on the other show. One Women's Championship. One Midcard title on each show. Do something edgy. Push those mid-card guys up to the main events. You have a lot of guys like Dean Ambrose, Bray Wyatt, those are the only two I can think of right now. But those are two like main guys that really have been like on the cusp of breaking from here to here. We're right here, rising, but we're always stuck here. But now they can get here. So anyway, guys, let me know what you think of the brand split. Do you think it's a good idea? I think it's a good idea. There's always so much stuff that could get screwed up in this brand split, but I think that they have an option to make it right. Do one championship. If you do one championship for one world title, you'll be fine. Don't do two. Keep it one. Guys have to work extra hard to get that title. When they get that title, they are going to be perfect. One thing I didn't address is, do you do brand split pay-per-views, or do you do one pay-per-view for both brands? I don't know. Do two a month. Do one Raw, do one SmackDown. Doesn't matter. It's a network. People don't have to pay extra to watch it.